Why did you pick foreign adoption and not domestic adoption?
The reason I chose a foreign adoption was because at the time when I was undergoing this process, there had been some things in the newspaper about adoptions that had happened, domestic adoptions that had happened, and after the fact, the birth parents had changed their mind, or one birth parent had, and the adoptive parents had to give the child back. But if you went through a foreign adoption, that didn't happen. So I really couldn't stand the thought of that happening, so I decided to do a foreign adoption.
How did you settle on Russia?
I chose Russia because I went to a meeting about foreign adoption, and at the meeting they said that when you're thinking about where you want to go to adopt, you should choose a country either where you have heritage, or where you have friends, or where you have family, or where you speak the language. And I had been going back and forth to Russia for business, so I had some friends in Moscow. And also, I think our family heritage includes having some people from Russia, so I felt the most comfortable there.
How long did the process take?
For me, the process took 9 months, which is pretty quick. Usually they say, at that time they were saying that it would take from a year to a year and a half, but mine went very quickly.
Why?
I'm not sure, but I think partly because I had friends in Russia who were helping me with the process. In fact, somebody that I knew was working in Russia for the adoption agency that I was using in this country. So it just was kind of lucky that I had friends there. And I'm not sure that's the reason why it went faster. It might have just been fluke.
Can you remember the specific steps of the process?
I can try. I can remember some of them. I might not get them in exactly the right order. But I remember the first thing you have to do is to choose an agency. So I chose MAPS, the Maine Adoption Placement Service. And the reason I chose them was because a friend of mine was working for them. And so she said she would help. And I felt more comfortable when I knew somebody in the agency. And then after I chose the agency, then I had to choose which program. They had a program bringing children from China. They could bring children from South America. I chose Russia. After that, I had to write an autobiography of myself and my family, which was fun for me. I really enjoyed that. I had other friends who were doing the same thing at the same time, and they hated that part, but I really liked that part. It was fun. And I also had to have a psychological evaluation by a psychiatrist to make sure that I was healthy mentally. And I also had to have a home visit by a social worker who came into the house to make sure that I lived where I said I lived, and that the house looked the way I said it looked, and we had room for a child. I had to file 1 million papers, and those are the ones I can't remember the exact names of them, but there were papers that I had to file with the Department of Justice, Immigration, and Naturalization. And I remember I had to run up to Hartford a few times and get things stamped by a notary in various places. Eventually, when all the papers were filed and I paid all the fees that I needed to pay locally, then I was just told, okay, now you just wait, and you wait for a placement. Once I got the placement, which meant that they sent me a name of a baby and a few little bits of information about the baby, including 1 page of information about a medical history. They said I had 2 weeks to make the final decision, to say, yes, you will take this baby, or no, you will not take this baby. So I took those medical documents to a doctor here, and she looked them over and she explained them to me and told me, what to expect. And then I said, okay, I'll take this baby. And then they said, all right, now wait to hear from us, and we'll call you when you can come and get her. So then I waited.
What happened when you went to Russia?
Well, the first thing that happened was that I met the person that was going to help me on that side, a woman named Zoya. And Zoya had a driver who took us to the baby home, which was about an hour and a half outside of Moscow. And once I was there, there was a lot of bureaucracy I had to go through there. I can't remember all of it exactly. We had to get papers signed, and we had to get certain official stamps at the town hall. And then eventually I was allowed to leave the baby home, which is what they call the orphanage. I had to leave the baby home. I could leave the baby home with the baby, and we drove back to Moscow. And then there was another 2 or 3 days of more official. I had to go to the embassy and get a passport. I had to go get a translated birth certificate, and we had to go to a court hearing to finalize the adoption on Russian soil. So it was terminating all parental rights on the Russian side. And then eventually I was able to bring the baby home, back to the United States.
Was it an expensive process?
From start to finish, I'm not sure what you would call expensive, but probably from start to finish, including everything from airfare and all of the fees, the court fees and the official document fees and the fees that I had to pay to the adoption agency, probably about $25,000 to $30,000. I think that's what it was.
Once you got home from Moscow, was that the end of the process?
Not entirely. In terms of the legal process, once I got home, the adoption wasn't finalized on this side for another 6 months. And in the course of that 6 months, we had to have 4 post-adoption observations, which meant that 4 times a social worker came to the house to talk to us and to see how the baby was doing and to make sure everything was good. And once that 4th observation was finished and the social worker wrote a report, then that part was done. And that's when the adoption was finally able to be finalized legally. I had also signed a contract with the adoption agency, which was just part of their process, asking me, or where I agreed to send them pictures and reports for up to 2 years. Every couple of months, pictures and little reports or anything about the adoption. And I'm not sure why they wanted that, but I think partly for their own information, and I think also it helped them to talk to prospective adoptive parents about what it was like and how things were going.